As my grandmother would say, Lord, Lord, Lord. That's a L-A-W-D, not L-O-R-D. Get up closer. You know, it's interesting when you listen to love songs, or when I listen to love songs now, sometimes I think in terms of the universal. And so many of these songs, like that could be the song about somebody you love, somebody out here, but it could also be a song to your higher self. It could also be a song about God. It could also be, especially that one. You know, how many times do we think about ourselves being the best thing that has ever happened to us? How often do you really think that? Yeah, if we're honest with ourselves, not often. So, anyway, segue. So, centuries ago, I had an exercise business and had a contract at a corporation and hired an instructor. I had several locations where I had exercise classes and I had instructors, and I managed them and did choreography and gave them workouts and all that other stuff. And it was fun and wonderful. And I found out at that time, I don't know that I ever want to manage people again, because most of my headaches and worries were about managing people and not about the clients and the customers and the workouts. Oh, it was just crazy. But one of the people I hired, a young man named Dennis, who was a very good instructor, and I had seen him teach somewhere else. And I asked him at one point, I really was always looking for good people to hire. And there's people who know what they're doing and people who are good to work with. They're not always the same person. So I found that out after several weeks of working with Dennis, and there were a number of things I had in place, and especially when I had contracts with corporations, a lot of times there were stipulations about things that had to be done a certain way because I was using their space. And so I abided by those. So if I had to change the way I did things from location to location, I did that because the corporation required it. And so I was aware of that as the owner and as the supervisor, but my instructors were. They knew what was required of them at each location. So Dennis decided that he wanted to do things his way at the two locations where he taught. So, the first time I just had to say, well, we can't do that because I have the contract and this is the agreement with the corporation. And he said he understood. And then things happened again. And so there had to be another talk. And so it's a little bit of a different talk now, because you said you understood the first time. And now the second time we're having the same problem again. So which part didn't you get? The N or the O? Not quite sure. A no is a no about that. So, we had the talk, and I thought, okay, let's see how this goes. And so it happened a third time. I had a problem a third time. And now it's really a much, much, much different discussion. And I ended up finding out that, discerning for myself, that Dennis had a problem working for a female supervisor. Yeah. And he just decided there are things he wanted done his way, and I told him unequivocally, that can't happen, and so this is now time number 3. We're having a discussion, and so, yeah, bye-bye, Dennis. You can go start your own exercise classes wherever you want to have exercise classes. You can do things your way, and that ended up becoming a heated discussion at that point. And that was way before I was in my, diplomatic phase and my ended up getting a New Jersey-style dressing down. But by the time we parted company that day, he knew that he was done. Really done. Well done, thank you. Yeah. Poke him with a fork. We're done. So Dennis had a bias about female supervisors. And we as humans, we have biases. We just do. We have preconceived notions about things based upon our history, whatever's come up in our lives, the way our families were, whatever experiences we've had, all those things get lodged in the brain. And the brain also, we naturally have biases because we are built for survival. That's what the brain's job is to do, to help us survive. And it knows that what's familiar is probably safe. And so anything outside of the familiar, what your brain is used to holding in your mind, what it's used to, anything outside of that, it considers a threat. Quite naturally. It's just how we're built for survival. But there needs to be a part of us that knows that. And because we have free will and we have these minds that are unlimited, we can countermand that survival mechanism, but it takes work. It takes work. So we can end up with biases about a lot of things. It might be that you never grew up around a different racial group other than your own. And so you have a degree of suspicion about other groups if you're only used to one thing. And it's just very natural. It's not that you have some negative proclivity. It's just that your brain goes there and it says, oh, this is different, pay attention, pay attention, pay attention, pay attention. But that can cause us to spiral down if we let the brain take over and the reptilian brain take over and just say, again, danger, 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 Will Robinson. And then we act from that place rather than the rest of your mind coming in and letting your conscious mind that has access to all knowledge expand what you think. You may have different thoughts about people who are older. Maybe you think they're not as sharp. Or you think if you were used to certain people coming and taking care, either helping out at your house or cutting your lawn or something, you think that's what they're always supposed to do. So then if you go to the doctor and your doctor's of a certain ethnicity, you think, okay, this isn't good. Because they are not supposed to be in this role. It's a bias. It's a bias. I grew up in an area where there was Little Italy and there was Chinatown and different groups in different areas. And so when we went for Italian food, you went to a Little Italy. If you wanted Chinese food, you went to Chinatown. And so I don't trust places. If you're not Italian and you're selling Italian food, I don't want to eat there. So a place where I had an apartment had a Chinese restaurant, and it was called Manny's. And my friends always wanted to go, and I said, no, I'm not going to Manny's for Chinese food. I mean, what does Manny know about Chinese food? So I don't know. There could have been someone of Chinese descent named Manny cooking the food, but I didn't know. They didn't tell me that on the sign. And I didn't go in the kitchen to find that out. But that's a bias of mine. I still have that. There's even a pizza place called Andrew's Pizza. That's my last name, and I don't want to go. Because how many Italians are last named Andrews? That's my bias, but I know I have that. Quentin keeps saying the pizza's good. I'm like, I don't know. What do you know? Do you have a Little Italy in Kansas? Probably not. I don't know. But that's my bias, and I know that. I don't get dinner at IHOP. Pancakes. That's breakfast. Yes, that's my bias. So I don't know. I could be missing out on something perfectly good because I have this bias. That might have been the best Chinese food ever at Manny's, but I won't go because of the name Manny. I might, now that I'm so evolved, I might try it now, but who knows? But our bias can cost us. And I was listening to a radio show, driving in the car Saturday, and the gentleman said, bias is expensive. And that struck me. Now, he was talking about finance, and he was talking about the world we live in now where so many people are so politically dug in and biased. And making decisions from an emotional place about your money. And he said it can get expensive because you can decide because of your bias, and it's probably not a conscious decision, but your bias is driving you to certain decisions to vote a particular way. And we're not going to get into the whys and wherefores and what side he had. He was even avoiding some of that. But using your emotions to guide you through something that should be objective. And he said he has fallen prey to that. And it was expensive. He lost big money because he let his emotions guide him. He let that bias sway him to a particular thing. But things can get expensive, not just money-wise, but maybe it's in terms of our own beingness and who we are, as how we show up in terms of relationships. So if you avoid all of one group or another because you have a bias, you're missing out on a fullness and a richness of experience and relationship because of that. That's expensive to our beingness, to who we are as people. It can be expensive to our spirits because that's a narrow-mindedness, a narrow focus of life, where you think everything, you've got all your eggs in this one basket about a particular thing, when really you could be living as if there is no basket and no limited amount of eggs. And living free mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Having a curiosity about things that you're not acquainted with. Being able to discover things you didn't know. Being able to have relationships with people that you didn't know or you're previously not comfortable with. It seems like now for me, whenever I hear people say like-minded people, I want to be with like-minded people, the hair goes up on the back of my neck. Yes, it's nice to be with the people who believe and think like we do. But man, it can open up all kinds of doors and all kinds of understanding and experience if we will seek out things that are unfamiliar to us, that kind of push our buttons a little bit, make us uncomfortable, to allow ourselves to be vulnerable in places with people, with things, with ideas that we have no concept of. This class I'm taking is like that. And everybody is going through it, all 20 of us students. It's not unusual for people to say, I came to class today thinking I knew what was going on with these chapters, and now that I'm hearing other people speak, I don't have a clue now what's going on. Or now all of a sudden, my consciousness about this is being taken in another direction. Or my mind is now blown because I had no idea. I had no idea that someone could think like this about that particular concept. And so often it will be, we're all there on Zoom in our little squares, and often somebody will just go like this. Or the teacher will pose a question, and all we do is babble back at him. He'll say, so what do you think? So Kim, what do you think about that? I don't. I don't have a clue. And I've said to him more than once in class, I said, if you come back to me in about 15 minutes, I think, I have something. But right now, I got nothing. I don't. Because you've taken me completely out of my comfort zone mentally and now spiritually about reality. Because we're talking about quantum physics and the nature of reality. And it was already mind-blowing in the beginning, but now that we're really into it and we're coming up on class number 27. It's just, there's a million different things to think, times a million. And I do. I have some preconceived notion when we start class at 12 noon on Wednesdays, and I think, I kind of got this, and I made my notes or something, and then another student will speak, and I'm like, where did he get, why is his brain doing that? Yeah. Whatever you're smoking, can I have some of that? Because I don't know. And it's fun, and it's sometimes scary, and it's really uncomfortable at times. And I've learned through these 27 weeks now not to judge myself because somebody else's brain works differently than mine. But man, has it been exciting. And it's expanded me on all levels, all levels, all levels. And that's what can happen when we'll drop our bias about a particular thing, a group, a thought, a paradigm. Biases are really they are based upon preconceived notions or something unreasonable. Something unreasonable or preconceived, something you've carried forward, old stuff, usually attached to baggage. And are you willing to drop it? Are you willing to be in spaces with people, with ideas that are unfamiliar? Or that you may judge as looking funny, sounding stupid, crazy. We have all kinds of judgments about things and people. Are you willing to drop it? And are you willing to be in the space, in the divine space, in your divinity, and see from that perspective? Are you willing to let yourself embrace that there's a whole lot more you don't know than you know? So that's uncomfortable right there for many people. Because we like to pride ourselves on knowing, on having something figured out. It makes us comfortable when we have things figured out. And the brain likes to know that we have things figured out because it's working a trillion times in 1 second trying to figure things out for you and keep you in a place where you feel comfortable. It's human nature.
Do you think that spirit is uncomfortable?
Spirit is everything. What is there to be uncomfortable about? Spirit knows everything, is everything, has everything, created everything.
So when we're uncomfortable about something, then we're not following what needs to be comforted.
Then you're probably out of alignment
You're right.
with your spiritual nature. Because it's there, you're just not focusing on it. You're not seeing it. You're not knowing it as you in that moment. And so when we bump up against a bias, and maybe the first thing is to just realize that you have some bias, and it's natural. So don't kick yourself for it. Doesn't mean you're not evolved in many ways. It just means we all got stuff. We all got stuff. And it's based upon a preconceived or unreasonable notion. Yes, there are some things that are dangerous. Yes, there are some things we need to stay away from. But if we use our divine nature, we use our divine wisdom, then you can know what those things truly are. And then you can be in spaces with people, with ideas that are totally unfamiliar to you and be comfortable. Be comfortable in your discomfort. Be comfortable in your discomfort. And know when you're standing with something, in front of something, experiencing something that kind of rocks your world a little bit, you can say, I'm all good. And I'm just going to be curious about this moment, about this thing, about this purpose, this person, this culture, this person at this age. Maybe this is the best doctor I'll ever run into in life, even though they're of an ethnicity that I'm not comfortable with being right here. Taking care of me. Might be okay to take care of you, but I don't want them to take care of me. So can we drop our stuff and be open? You know, vulnerability takes strength. Vulnerability is not a weakness. The root of the word vulnerable means to cut. So it means you can be open to danger, to being wounded, and stand fully in yourself knowing you're good. And is there a possibility we'll get punched metaphorically or in actuality? Yes. But you still know that you're okay. You still know that you're good. You still know that your highest and best is being served right now in this place of vulnerability. You still love even though your heart's been broken. You're still curious about things outside of your experience even though you've been disappointed before. So if we're really grounded, really got our roots deep into our foundation, our understanding of God, then you can venture anywhere with anyone doing anything and be good. You don't have to get defensive. There's nothing to fight. There's no need to scream. You can hear things that are totally against everything you believe in and feel peaceful in the moment and say, oh, that's interesting. It's interesting you think like that.
It's okay to be unreasonable.
or what we think is unreasonable, what we have judged to be unreasonable. It may not be unreasonable, it's just different. But that's how we judge things. It's unreasonable, it's stupid, it's misguided. You're crazy. You're not evolved, you're not enlightened. You're stupid. You're uneducated. Don't have enough experience. You're too emotional, too woo-woo, whatever. Overly analytical, narcissistic. Oh my gosh, it seems like now these days, every other person is judged to be narcissistic. No, it doesn't mean anything anymore. Man, that word flies around these days so much. I see it on social media, every third post. This is how you deal with a narcissist. Oh my God, can we stop it with the narcissist? Can we worry about ourselves and our own stuff before we start handing out labels? Because usually in a label, there's bias. Usually in a label, there's bias. And if we're truly taking care of ourselves, if we truly are living from our divinity, you don't have to worry about narcissists. In fact, you probably won't notice if they're around. They're just somebody else who's doing their thing the way they think they need to do it. And you don't have to label them. They're just doing their thing, and you love them where they are. So what biases do we have? We all have them. It's okay to admit you have them. You're human, you got them. You got a working brain, you got them. You got some history on you, you got them. But can you operate from your true essence, your divinity, and have a wider, expansive, open paradigm, or maybe no paradigm at all? Maybe you're just open. Maybe you're just fully yourself, ready to experience whatever comes down your path fully, and have a curiosity about it and an excitement about it. What could I learn now? What could I learn now that I didn't know? How about if I just be around people, like-minded or otherwise, and enjoy them as people? Because everybody can be a teacher. Everybody can be a teacher for us if we'll let them. If we'll let ourselves be open. And let ourselves have a richness of experience and of life. Like you've never known before. And you can still like what you like. But be open. And be good. And feel secure. And feel at home like we were when we started service. Feeling at home in our beingness. Deeply rooted, grounded, free, peaceful. Always. Let's take this in a meditation. So pick a bias, any bias. We all have some. Just pick one. And be honest with yourself about it. Not judging yourself about it, just look at it. Might be about certain groups, certain ideologies, certain beliefs, certain age groups. Maybe it's a regional thing. Just look at it. Where did it come from? Or is it such a familiar pattern that you have no idea where it came from? Just let yourself look at it objectively, without kicking yourself, without judging yourself. And ask yourself the question, are you willing to let it go? And how could you expand your thinking about this particular thing, group, thought pattern, habit, part of the country, of the world? How can you be open about this particular thing? How can you be curious? And are you willing to be curious? About it? How can you apply your divinity to this bias? And how could you show up differently in the world without it? How could you show up as the divine you in situations where that bias crops up? How can you make the thing be a no thing? So just breathe into it. Are you willing to be uncomfortable so that you can expand? So that you can be in greater alignment with your divine essence. How can you apply love and wipe out the bias and free yourself from preconceived notions? And narrow-mindedness. Just breathe and relax. It's all good. There's always chaos before things start to come together. And if you're clueless about what to do with the bias, ask. Simply ask Spirit to guide you. Ask your highest self, your higher self. That is the best thing that's ever happened to you. To guide you. And the answer may take time. If it's a long-held bias, give yourself grace. And be open. Arms wide open, always, literally or metaphorically. We are always guided, always supported, always secure if we will but tune in to the wellspring of life that is God. Divine wisdom stands within you and as you always. If we will only harness it. The power is yours for the asking, for the taking, for the claiming. So we know that we are one with all things, all beings. We are separate from no one. And as we judge others, we judge ourselves, for we are one. We are one. Let's take a deep breath together. Inhale. Exhale. Let's inhale again. Exhale. It's all good. It's all God. And so it is, and so it shall be. Amen.